Steroidal anti-inflammatory.
Hash is an anti-inflammatory.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And marijuana. So Bruce Lee figured it out first. Bruce Lee used to eat hash after working out to reduce the thing. He would have died his brain would have swelled a long time ago.
Bruce Lee, a man who's transcended the status of mere mortal to become nothing less than a legend. Bruce Lee was not only a force in martial arts, but also a pioneer, a cultural icon, and, surprisingly, a bit of a medical trailblazer, albeit unknowingly. But just as his star reached its zenith, tragedy struck. Just weeks before Enter the Dragon premiered, Bruce Lee passed away suddenly, leaving fans around the world in shock. Here was a man in his prime, an unstoppable force, gone in an instant. What could have possibly happened? But let's take it back to the beginning. Born in San Francisco in November 1940 as Lee Junfan, Bruce's life had some rather dramatic twists right from the start. He was the son of a Cantonese opera singer and a Eurasian mother. A true international soul, he spent only 4 months in the States before the family headed back to Hong Kong. Little did anyone know that baby Bruce, now with American citizenship thanks to those convenient just solely laws, would one day return to the US to redefine action cinema. Bruce didn't just dabble in film as an adult, he practically grew up on stage. His first role was as an infant in his mother's arms in the film Golden Gate Girl. By age 9, he was already stealing scenes alongside his father in the play The Kid. This wasn't some casual stint. By 18, he'd racked up an impressive 20 film credits. So when we say he was made for the big screen, we're not exaggerating. Yet school was a different story. Bruce wasn't exactly an A+ student. He was more into street fights than exams. The solution: martial arts training. Enter Yip Man, a legendary grandmaster who took Bruce under his wing in Wing Chun. There was a catch, though. Bruce's quarter European heritage nearly kept him out. Thankfully, a friend vouched for him, and Bruce was in. And from there, the rest is martial arts history. By 1958, Bruce had already dominated a Hong Kong interschool boxing tournament. But his parents weren't thrilled with his combative streak, so off to the States he went. Fast forward a bit, he was now in Seattle, honing not only his fighting skills but also his own fighting style, Junfan Gung Fu, a personal brand of Kung Fu. Before long, he was teaching martial arts and making his way back into film. America got its first taste of Bruce Lee as Kato in The Green Hornet, and the fans? They went wild. After some stateside success, Bruce returned to Hong Kong and single-handedly changed the game. His first Hong Kong film, The Big Boss, shattered box office records across Asia. And when Fist of Fury hit screens, it only cemented his status. But it was Enter the Dragon in 1973 that catapulted Bruce to global fame, becoming one of the highest-grossing martial arts films of all time and a cult classic. But just as his star reached its zenith, tragedy struck. Just weeks before Enter the Dragon premiered, Bruce Lee passed away suddenly, leaving fans around the world in shock. It all began on May 10, 1973. Bruce collapsed during a recording session, reportedly experiencing seizures and severe headaches. Rushed to the hospital, doctors diagnosed him with cerebral edema, a dangerous swelling of the brain. Although he recovered at the time, just 2 months later, while working with producer Raymond Chow and actress Betty Ting Pei, Bruce took a nap and simply never woke up. Despite efforts to revive him, Bruce Lee was pronounced dead upon arrival at Queen Elizabeth Hospital. To this day, the exact cause of his death remains a topic of mystery and speculation. The death of Bruce Lee on July 20, 1973, was one of those moments that threw the world into chaos, like the universe hit pause on reality, and suddenly, everyone was scrambling to figure out what had happened. How does a man who embodied strength, vitality, and a superhuman work ethic just die out of the blue? As you can imagine, the public immediately plunged into a frenzy, and the world of speculation, mystery, and conspiracy theories opened wide, sucking in fans, experts, and conspiracy theorists alike. It didn't help that Bruce Lee's death, much like his life, was anything but ordinary. At the core of this whirlwind of mystery was a forensic scientist named Donald Tier, a man whose resume boasted over 1,000 autopsies. When you've dissected that many mysteries, it's hard to believe this one would throw you off course. Tier concluded Bruce's cause of death as death by misadventure, a phrase that sounds more like a tragic vacation gone wrong than what it really was. Cerebral edema, a swelling of the brain, compounded by a deadly mix of medications. Imagine that this martial arts legend, a man who had mastered control over every muscle in his body, was brought down by an uncontrollable swelling in his brain. The report was thorough, stating Bruce's brain had swollen from 1,400 grams to 1,575 grams, a significant and dangerous increase. This wasn't just any headache. Bruce had taken a combination of aspirin and meprobamate, a tranquilizer, earlier in the day. While he'd taken these medications before without issue, this time the cocktail became a fatal one. So, was it just a tragic reaction to common drugs? Not everyone was convinced. As often happens when legends die unexpectedly, whispers of something more sinister began to circulate. Cannabis also entered the conversation. Yes, you heard that right. Some reports suggested that Bruce had been using the substance heavily in the days leading up to his death. It became a juicy tidbit for people eager to connect dots that didn't quite exist. However, Terry, another forensic expert, cleared that up swiftly, explaining that Bruce's stomach showed no traces of cannabis, a conclusion corroborated by the clinical pathologist at Queen Elizabeth Hospital. So, scratch that off the list of potential causes. Then, in 2018, author Matthew Polly, who was no stranger to Bruce Lee's life and work, dove deep into the circumstances surrounding the star's death. Polly's investigation came to a new conclusion. Bruce's cerebral edema might have been triggered by heat stroke and extreme physical stress. Here's where things get wild. Did you know Bruce had his underarm sweat glands removed a year before his death? He believed underarm sweat wasn't photogenic enough for his on-screen image. Imagine being so committed to your appearance that you'd mess with your body's natural cooling system. According to Polly, this decision had a devastating effect on Bruce's ability to regulate his body temperature, particularly in the sweltering Hong Kong heat. Picture Bruce pushing his body to the limits during intense training sessions, in the peak of summer, without the ability to sweat properly. It's a recipe for disaster, and in Polly's view, this overheating likely triggered a deadly heat stroke, worsening the cerebral edema. Just when you thought it couldn't get any more complex, another medical theory was published in Critical Kidney Journal in 2022. This one introduced yet another twist: hyponatremia, a condition where dangerously low sodium levels cause swelling in the brain. According to the article, Bruce had all the risk factors. He reportedly consumed excessive amounts of water while not taking in enough solutes. Think electrolytes, minerals like sodium that are essential for bodily function. Add to that his alcohol consumption and potential drug use, and you've got a perfect storm brewing. The authors of the article believe Bruce's sodium imbalance could have led to his brain swelling, worsening the situation until it became fatal. Now, if we ended here, we'd have a medical mystery for the ages. But that's not the end, not by a long shot. You didn't think the world would accept that Bruce Lee just died from heat stroke or a drug reaction, did you? Not a chance. Cue the conspiracy theories. What if Bruce Lee didn't die from an unfortunate medical incident at all? What if his death was part of something much darker, a grand inside job orchestrated by people in the shadows? If you spend any time online, especially in the conspiracy-riddled corners of the internet, you're bound to encounter theories that Bruce's death wasn't accidental but intentional. Enter Joe Rogan, king of podcast speculation, and his guest Joey Diaz, an actor and comedian, who ventured into the murky world of Bruce Lee conspiracy during an episode of the Joe Rogan Experience. Diaz, with his trademark no-holds-barred style, shared his belief that Bruce's death might have been an orchestrated hit, carried out by shady figures within the entertainment industry. According to him, Bruce had done several films with people who were, how do we put this delicately, deeply entrenched in the heroin trade. In Joey's view, Bruce had made millions with these individuals, but when he decided to walk away and start his own thing, some very powerful people weren't happy. And in their world, when you cross them, the consequences can be deadly. Think about it. Bruce Lee, a man who had made astronomical amounts of money for others, suddenly wants out. If you're one of those people losing your golden goose, what do? According to Joey Diaz, you might just make sure that goose never flies again. The theory doesn't seem so outlandish when you consider Bruce's tumultuous relationship with the Hong Kong film industry. At the time, Shaw Brothers and Golden Harvest were the titans of the industry. If you wanted to make movies in Hong Kong, you dealt with them or you didn't deal at all. Bruce had started out making films with Golden Harvest, and together they created box office smashes like The Big Boss and Fist of Fury. But after achieving superstardom, Bruce wasn't content being just another actor on their payroll. He had bigger dreams of running his own production company. And that's exactly what he did. In 1972, Bruce formed Concord Productions with Raymond Chow, founder of Golden Harvest. It was the ultimate power move. Bruce owned 51% of the company, Chow owned 49%, and suddenly Bruce was calling the shots, producing and directing his own films. Their first project, Way of the Dragon, was a massive success. But the real crown jewel was Enter the Dragon, the biggest, most ambitious film of Bruce's career. It grossed a staggering $400 million worldwide, far outstripping the success of his earlier films, and cementing his place as an international star. Here's where things get interesting. Bruce's move toward independence would have sent shockwaves through the Hong Kong film industry. He was no longer just an actor, they had lost control of their star player. Joey Diaz speculated that this decision didn't sit well with everyone, especially people who had profited handsomely from Bruce's earlier films. According to him, Bruce's former bosses, including individuals with shady connections, might have decided that Bruce had gotten too big, too independent. And when that happens, some people pull the strings to make sure you never leave. The parallels to Bruce's son, Brandon Lee, are eerie. Brandon died under similarly mysterious circumstances in 1993 while filming The Crow. He was accidentally shot with a prop gun that was supposed to contain blanks, but a fragment from a previous bullet was lodged in the barrel. For many, the coincidences between father and son's deaths are too close to ignore. Was Brandon's death another inside job, a way to further punish the Lee family? The speculation is endless. Whether you believe the medical explanations, the conspiracies, or some combination of both, one thing is undeniable. Bruce Lee's death will forever be shrouded in mystery. The man who seemed larger than life, a force of nature, was felled by something so small and unseen, whether it was a brain condition, foul play, or a combination of factors. His legacy, however, lives on, not only in his films and teachings but also in the persistent intrigue surrounding his untimely death. The mystery of Bruce Lee will never truly die, because legends, as they say, never do. Bruce Lee didn't just enter the dragon. He entered an entire industry that didn't know what hit it. But, as it often happens when someone rises too high too fast, it comes with a storm of complications. And Bruce? Well, he made a lot of people angry. You see, Bruce wasn't just a star, he was a money-making machine. The kind of cash cow studios dream about. So why wouldn't people be upset? Here's the kicker. Bruce Lee was already in a fragile state long before the final curtain fell. Turns out, Bruce had started experiencing seizures back in May 1973. A neurosurgeon even treated him for it. And guess what Bruce was doing to ease the pain? Eating hash. Yeah, you read that right. Before CBD and medical marijuana were trendy, Bruce Lee had already figured out that hash had anti-inflammatory properties. Who needs Advil when you have Bruce Lee's pioneering genius, right? But let's not get carried away. This was no magic cure. His brain was at the edge of burnout, but he kept pushing. And then there's Raymond Chow. Chow was the man who lured Bruce back to Hong Kong, signing him to Golden Harvest, a powerhouse in the Hong Kong film industry. It was a game of studio wars between Golden Harvest and the Shaw Brothers, and getting Bruce Lee on your side, that was like landing the ultimate prize. But here's where it gets really juicy. After Bruce's untimely death, something strange happened. The 51% ownership stake Bruce had in Concord Productions, his film company was sold to Chow, the same guy who had brought him to Golden Harvest. Coincidence? Maybe, but Chow didn't stop there. By 1976, he closed down the entire company and sold it back to none other than Golden Harvest, the very studio Bruce had helped rise to the top. Oh, and Chow? He became the chief executive of Golden Harvest. Sounds like a setup straight out of a Bruce Lee movie, doesn't it? Except Bruce wasn't there for the final act. After Bruce's death, Concord Productions was pretty much dead in the water. Sure, they did a documentary, Bruce Lee, the man and the legend, but it was more of a tribute than anything else. And that was it. They never made another movie. The company faded into obscurity and was conveniently sold off to Golden Harvest. You start to wonder, was Bruce Lee's death really just a tragic accident, or was something more sinister at play? Now, here's where things get really interesting. While many conspiracy theorists point fingers at various culprits, bad medical treatment, shady deals, even his mistress Betty Ting Pei, another theory keeps popping up: a family curse. A curse that targeted the men of the Lee family. Bruce died at the young age of 32. A tragedy. But years later, his son Brandon followed in his father's footsteps, and not just in martial arts or acting. Brandon died tragically young as well. Coincidence? Or was this curse really taking its toll? Brandon Lee was born in 1965, eager to follow in his father's legendary footsteps. By the early 90s, he had built his own career and was starring in his breakthrough role in The Crow. But during filming on March 31, 1993, a scene went terribly wrong. A prop gun, improperly checked, fired a live round. Brandon was struck in the abdomen. Everyone thought he was acting when he fell to the ground. Only he wasn't acting. They rushed him to the hospital, but after 6 hours of surgery, it was too late. Brandon Lee was gone at just 28 years old, even younger than his father. Now, you tell me, is it really so far-fetched to believe in this so-called Lee family curse? Bruce Lee was, without a doubt, a legend. His life was short, but his impact, eternal. There will always be rumors, whispers, and conspiracies about what really happened. But one thing is certain: Bruce Lee lived fully, even if the world only got a small piece of him. What do you think? Was there something more to Bruce Lee's death? Let us know in the comments, because this story is far from over.